members and stakeholders. Mrs. Nicker, do we correct? Can we start?
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Yes, we may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable members, Minister Ivan Meyer, Dr. Svupeza, Dr. Duplessis, and all representatives from the Department of Agriculture, their entity, Casidra, media present, members of the public joining virtually, and all other stakeholders. My name is Noko Masipa, the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism. With me is Mrs. Van Nicker. Mrs. Nicker, apologies. I warmly welcome you to this meeting of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Vote 11 deliberation, which is constituted as a public hearing and meeting in terms of the rules of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. As required, members of the public were invited to participate through an advertisement placed in print media. We have received a request, honorable members, from Witzenberg Justice Coalition to participate. But as the matter that was placed before the chair of the committee falls outside the specific agenda, the chair ruled that the matter cannot be presented during today's session. However, I have indicated to Witzenberg Justice Coalition that they are welcome to present their matter to the committee at the time that we will sort with the procedural officer. Other than that, honorable members, there are no other members of the public that made requests to make inputs relevant to the Western Cape Adjustment Appropriation Bill. Today's proceeding follow the standard process of appropriation bills. We will first deliberate on Vote 11 as referred to our committee. And once we have done, then we'll vote on the report or on the vote. The vote is found in the Blue Book, pages from 523 to 604. Once we have adopted the report, honorable members, as usual, we will forward this to Budget Committee. In its report, this committee may resolve to express either its support for Vote 11 or its non-support. Should the committee decide not to support the vote, should a committee member not decide not to support the report, it will be noted in the report. Any minority views as per Standing Rule 90 is not competent, honorable members, to present a report. However, it will be noted in the report. So in terms of the proceeding for today, honorable members, I've done the welcoming and then we'll do the deliberation and we'll consider and adopt the draft committee report on Vote 11. And then we'll go to resolutions. And if there are any issues that members want to discuss in general, we can do that. So just to save time, honorable members, I thought I will just note the list that we were given by the department of their attendance, starting with our Minister, Dr. Ivan Meyer, Minister of Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism, Dr. Mohale Sebupeza, Head of Department, Mr. Daryl Jacobs, Deputy Director General, Agricultural Development and Support Services, Mrs. Bongiswa Matoti, Acting Director, Deputy Director General, Agricultural Research and Regulatory Services, Mrs. Linde Govender, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Paul Rockman, Chief Director, Operational Support Services, Mr. Michael Brinkhase, the Chief Director, Agricultural Producer Support and Development, Mr. Dr. Msiza, Chief Director, Veterinary Services, Dr. Fries, Chief Director, Regulatory and Research Technology Development Services, and Mr. Stanner, the Principal Chief Director of Agricultural Education and Training, Elsenbeck College. Ms. Pandaram, Chief Director, Rural Development, Ms. Thomas, Director, Business Planning and Strategy, Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Jacobs with a Z, Supply Chain and Asset Management, Mr. Glenn Stalling, Director, Supply Chain and Asset Management, Ms. Ashia Peterson, Director, Sustainable Resource Use and Management, Ms. and Mrs. Londiwe Tavete, Acting Director, Agricultural Economic Services. With them is Casidra, Dr. Keith Duplessis, the Chief Executive Officer, and Mr. Joseph Rode. With that said, honorable members, I will allow you to introduce yourself, and thereafter we'll hand over directly to Minister Ivan Meyer, Dr. Swupeza, and Casidra to do their introductory remarks. Over to you, honorable members.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. This is Member Derek Wessels, member of the committee.
Afternoon, Chair. It's Dave Bryant, member of the committee.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon.
Member of the committee, thank you.
Good
Thank
afternoon,
you,
Chair. Good
Honourable
afternoon,
Bridges.
everyone. It's Brendan Adams, member of committee.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Honourable French Mbombo. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you,
Beauty
Honourable Mbombo.
Stoffel, alternate member of the committee.
Is that all, honourable members? I do note Honourable Ngondlo. You can note as present. With that said, Minister and HOD, over to you. If there are members of your department that were not introduced, please go ahead in terms of just introducing them. Over to you to do your opening remarks. Thank you.
Good day, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ivan Meyer, MEC for Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism, and thank you for this opportunity to present our budget proposals before this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Over to you, HOD.
Chair, good afternoon to you and to the members, and thanks again for the opportunity. I'm joined in the room by 4 other colleagues who are part of the Next Generation Bolt, who are here just to, as part of building the pipeline. It's Mr. Fritz, Dr. Bastian, and Mr. Trudeau, as well as Ms. Razia, whom are also here just to support, but mainly to observe as to what is happening. We are ready to engage, Chair, as soon as you direct us to start with our presentation. Thank you so much.
We are good. If there is no other opening remarks, you can go ahead with the presentation.
Thank you, Chair.
You can proceed. If I've asked if a Chief Executive Officer from Casidra is doing an opening remark.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Yeah, we will be just supporting the department. So all the presentation presented by them, we will also be incorporated within that presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, and back to you, HOD.
Thank you, Chair. We will start. There's about 25 slides that sought to summarize our budget, and in particular, looking at the new money that we received to support agriculture in the Western Cape. The first slide, we've shown this all the time. This is about the ministerial priorities of the Minister for Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism, Dr. Ivan Meyer. When he came in after consulting with stakeholders, he then came up with 4 ministerial priorities, and those are agricultural support, business support, food security and nutrition, as well as market access. And you can see on the slide also that we're linking up also with the growth for jobs, which is an apex priority for the Western Cape government, with 7 priority focus areas. And of course, we want to build a 1 trillion rand economy by 2035, but also we want to increase the number of jobs in the province by about 600,000, and with the growth rate of between 4% and 6% in the Western Cape. This second slide, really, it's about, wanting to put forth a case for agriculture, that it is a very important economic contributor in the Western Cape, an important sector that contributes 10% into the GDP of the province. And in terms of the employment, the numbers are listed there, 267,804 jobs. That is about 11% of the province contribution in terms of the employment, but also to indicate that in terms of the rural footprint, agriculture is the most competitive sector in each of our 5 rural districts in the province. And of course, the second most competitive is tourism, but of course, also that links up with agritourism and therefore linking up with the agricultural sector. The next point we want to make is the fact that this agriculture, this sector is actually very key in terms of the export. 7 of the 10 biggest export products of the Western Cape have an agricultural foundation. And I think the next point, Minister had made this point in many cases, that for every 5% increase or decrease in agricultural exports, we realize about 22,951 jobs. And that is why exports are very, very important for us in the Western Cape. 66% of the value of what we produce in the Western Cape get exported. And I think later on we'll refer to what is happening now in the Middle East and to what extent that is presenting some kind of a threat for the agricultural sector. Of course, 54% of agricultural exports in South Africa originate from this province, the Western Cape. This slide really is just to paint a picture to you, Honorable Chair, and the members, that agriculture has outperformed the rest of the economy. If you look at the growth in terms of the agricultural sector, that graph there indicates the extent to which agriculture has been growing over the years. If you look at since the year 2000 up to 2024, in fact, I think you can see the numbers there. The growth is quite higher than the GDP of the Republic. Of course, there are a number of external factors that influence performance, many of which are uncertain in the outlook. Of course, the global market dynamics, the commodity price cycles, we've seen that trajectory from 2007 and 8 up to 2022, and of course, is still going on. Macroeconomic factors, the global financial crisis, the poor economic performance, and spending power constraints in SA. And of course, the biggest issue that is a major constraint for us now, and I think we also welcomed the opportunity earlier this week to brief the committee. It's really the issue around the animal diseases. In particular, we're dealing with the foot and mouth outbreak, which is affecting the whole of the Republic. And we have started, as indicated to the members earlier this week, that we've embarked on a massive vaccination program, and we are certain that will definitely break FMD in the Western Cape. This slide is really underscore the point that agriculture is trade, and its contribution into the RSA, South Africa's GDP. Last year, we exported 15.1 billion rands. And of course, on a straight line, that obviously will tell you that 60% of that emanate from the province of the Western Cape. This was a 10% growth. If you compare 2025 with just around 14 billion USD in the year 2024. This slide, it's again painting a picture of the several risks that the agricultural sector must weather. One of those is the input cost. A lot of our input are imported from elsewhere in the world, and obviously what is happening in the Middle East, it's a real threat to the agricultural sector. Of course, in the month of April, the wheat farmers are needing to start planting, and one of the things that we project is that if fuel price begin to increase, It's going to hit profitability of farmers, I think, in the next couple of weeks when they need to start preparing their fields. Market access is a big issue, and then for us, it's also a priority of the minister in terms of what we want to achieve. Of course, the issue around logistics, it's something that we continue to look at ways to deal with because it's something that continue to confront the agricultural sector. Of course, this week in the Western Cape, I think we've all experienced the worst weather conditions of up to 42 degrees in the province, which is something that we're not really used to. But I think it elevates the whole issue of climate change as something that we are having to contend with and even to find ways around which we can adapt and mitigate for the agricultural sector. The next few slides really paint a picture on the extent to which the department is aligned to the provincial strategic plan of the Western Cape. The number one is the growth for jobs, which is an apex priority of this government. And of course, the 7 priority focus areas. And I want us to indicate to the chairperson and the members that the department is quite involved in almost all of the PFAs. And of course, we are the lead department in terms of priority focus area number 2, which looks at expanded access to domestic and global markets. And of course, if you look at PFA 2 that looks at securing water for the future, we're also playing a very important role there. You look at PFA 7 that looks at household access to employability and economic opportunities. We are indeed quite involved in all of those. The next one, really, it's about the what we colloquially call EHEX, educated, healthy, and caring society. Also, we are quite involved there in terms of 1, improved child well-being. Number 2, it's improved youth resilience, civic, educational, and economic participation. Of course, the third priority area there, it's increased well-being and agency of adult and older persons. Priority 4, it's improved spatial transformation and social infrastructure. Of course, point number 5 there being the issue around effective approach to One Health and disaster management. We are quite involved in that one as well. The next one is about safety, which is also a key priority for this government, and we're doing some work there together with the agricultural sector in all our districts through our program 8, which is rural development and coordination. The next slide, it's about innovation, culture, and governance, which is really an important anchor, which is the foundation really that upon which everything we do is built upon. It's innovation, integration and collaboration, culture and people-centric delivery, futures thinking, evidence-informed decision-making, as well as ease of doing government. Yeah, the next slide, Chairperson, it's about the impact statement. The impact really that we wanting to achieve in the Western Cape, Department of Agriculture, is to grow the number of residents in this province who are able to feed themselves and their families with dignity and do so sustainably. We thought it was important to summarize our indicators into what we refer to as basket of indicators. Number 1 is we want to increase agricultural production. And therein we look at the number of farmers supported to increase production. The next one is market access and exports. We're looking at the number of agri-businesses facilitated to access both domestic and export market. The third issue is around food safety and food security. We're looking at the number of households in vulnerable communities that are supported to produce their own food, and number of inspections conducted on facilities to produce food. It's about food safety. The fourth in the basket, it's about ecological infrastructure and river protection works, is the number of hectares of agricultural land that is rehabilitated to ensure water resilience and climate change impacts. Of course, the last one relates to resilient rural economies. It's about the number of initiatives implemented inclusive of AI in rural areas towards socio-economic upliftment of rural communities. This one really just argued the fact that we've conducted a thorough model of causality that begin to actually indicate that agriculture is nothing else but a combination of land, water, skills, and capital. And once you do that, you then lead up to increased agricultural production. And once you have that, you can lead to increased secondary agricultural production. And of course, the intention is to gain markets, both domestic as well as export market. And with that, you then realize economic growth, and food security can be realized from own production, or it can be realized from jobs. When people get jobs, they are then able to then access the food that is required. Of course, transformation is quite important, and the whole issue of women, youth, and people with disability, and of course the risks of climate change. But of course, when you look at the enablers, you look at a capable state, and of course issues around technology and fourth IR, and more importantly, the issues around innovation, which is also one of the values of the Western Cape government. This slide really just paints a picture of how complex the environment is that agriculture have to operate in. This is really the complexity of the space that we work in to try and ensure that farmers are correctly supported to then be able to produce excellent products and have them exported to grow our economy. This slide, it's about the fact that we continue to prioritize and reprioritize given the current fiscal environment we find ourselves in South Africa. Of course, number one that guides us in terms of the decisions we make is the legislative mandate of the department. There are certain things that we have to do in terms of the legislation. Of course, the second issue about food safety that links also to public health, and we cannot compromise that. We look at issues around zoonotic diseases. And of course, the third point that influence our planning is the issue around the fact that agriculture is a very, it's a scientific discipline. And when you start research, there are some protocols that you must adhere to. Of course, we are now right here at the Elsenburg farm, which is outside the city. And therefore, we've got to look at taking care of some of the work that we have to do, including security of this estate. Of course, at all our farms, we've got livestock, and those are not just animals, they are data points, and we've got to ensure that those are protected, but also in line with the agreements we have with other investors in South Africa and global in terms of the science that needs to be generated. Of course, in the last 10 years, if you like, we have conducted over 45 external evaluations that helps us to improve every year based on what the evidence tells us. And of course, regular engagements with our stakeholders to then determine what is the priority that needs to be looked at. In terms of the evaluations for the coming year, I think they are listed there. We're looking at revising the sector strategy for the Western Cape, and of course, Lower Olifants River Canal preventative maintenance. We will do an evaluation there to look at what other lessons can be learned around it. Of course, the issue around animal biosecurity risks in agricultural sector of South Africa, leading to the legislation that we want to write in terms of the work that we do. Of course, the employability of LSM graduates, it's something that we'll be testing also in the coming year. I want to pause here, Chair, and then over to my CFO to just take us into the numbers. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Thank you, HOD. So I will take us through the next few slides, just in terms of the actual allocations for the MTEF. This slide just indicates the total budget. You'll see the first green bar there is 26-27. Our budget moved from a baseline, the orange bar of just over $1 billion to 1.149 billion. That is a 13% increase, or in rand value, 128.5 million. You'll see that in 27-28, there's a 2% increase from 26-27, and the year after, the last year, there's another 3% increase. In terms of the funding sources over the MTF, our budget is made up of, as you know, conditional grants. For 26-27, it's 196 million. We also have our own revenue generation of 52.4 million, as well as then provincial equitable share. That is the biggest portion, about 78% of our budget allocation. That gives us that 1.149 billion. As I mentioned, the budget increased by 128 million, and maybe just to go into some detail, more will be shared in the following slides. But at a high level, our conditional grants has increased from 25-26 by 1.9 million, mainly CASP and land care. We had a slight decrease in the EPWP allocation. Our own revenue has increased. We've increased our estimate to be 12.8 million. That is really from increased estimates of revenue from generated from the college as well as veterinary services. And this has really then assisted us to increase the operational budget across various programs because of cost pressure that we have on a recurring basis. Our provincial equitable share has increased by 113 million. This was really to accommodate or assist with inflationary increases. The COE, for example, increased by 4% over the previous year, and expenditure by 3.6%. There's also been a significant increase in our earmarked allocation that is funded through equitable share of about 23 million. I'll give some more detail on that. We also received a once-off allocation of 11.1 million for the early retirement program, as you would all know about. That was for 22 officials that has opted to exit, and that has been allocated to the department only for 26-27. We've also received additional allocations to assist with capacity in Program 4, veterinary services, to assist with disease control. And then overall, in terms of operational budget pressures, the Treasury has also allocated additional funding, for example, for our must phase, also for our G4J flagship projects that's been identified as part of the MTech engagements, as well as our ECOS system that is used by Program 4. And I'll share more information on that. If I can just move then to the next slide, in terms of national grants, I've mentioned that CASP and land care has slightly increased. There's been a 9% increase into 27-28, and then a 1.7 to 28-29. I must mention that for 26-27, the CASP amount there of 186.8 million has excluded an allocation to the colleges. So there was about a 10 million cut in the CASP allocation to the colleges in this financial year. And to that end, we have asked the Treasury, our Provincial Treasury, to assist, and they have assisted us with some additional funding to the value of about 7 million to make up for that once-off cut. The outer years, however, does have an allocation for the colleges again in terms of CASP. In terms of EPWP, we get an annual allocation, hence the outer years are zero at this point. And maybe just to mention that the CASP and Ilima grant was merged, so that's all under one umbrella now. In terms of the earmarked funding, which is equitable share, I thought I'd just share the full list of earmarked funding that is included in our allocation letter, and which you would have seen in the blue book, as we call it. So the first three items is almost our standard recurring, or in terms of history, that has been our earmarked funding every year. So it's for river protection and ecological infrastructure, as well as the replacement of vineyards, the project being a long-term project. And each year the Treasury provides allocations there too. This year you would see there's a number of new allocations which was earmarked by the Treasury. Most of them, or actually all of them, linked to our G4J priority and our contributions there. One being additional information for ecological infrastructure projects relating to the hand removal of alien species after the fires of December and January. That is a project that will continue over the MTF, and you will see also it increases over time. It is a labor-intensive project, so that will create significant numbers of jobs. Then after that, you'll see the replacement of the vineyards. As I mentioned, because of the cut in CASP, they've added another 2 million to assist the department to continue with that project as planned. Then we have two projects, the one being Africa market activations, which is really in-country market activations in our key African countries to assist with exporting of agricultural products. That has been a specific ask in terms of our G4J flagships, which the Treasury has allocated to us, that sits with Program 6, our economic services, as well as the next one, advancing market access through agri-processing, which is mobile abattoirs that really assist the informal livestock sector to access the formal markets and also assist to create jobs in that space by the use of mobile abattoirs that will assist with certified slaughtering, processing, and cold storage. And that is also a longer-term project. Then we received an allocation towards ECOS, ECOS being the tool that we ensure compliance with international veterinary standards. There are certain developments that is at the moment being planned, and for that we needed an additional allocation, which the Treasury has secured for us. And the last one being the energy solar PV project in terms of agri-worker houses, that is also going to be rolled out by Program 8, Rural Development, and there's also a significant increase over the outer years, being a new project linked to G4J as well. So you can see at the bottom there, I mentioned that there's a 36% increase. The value of the increase is 23 million on earmarked funding. Then just in terms of the overall allocations per program, I'm not going to go into too much detail because all the information is in the Blue Book. You'll see we've just indicated the percentage split of each program of that 1.1 billion rand budget. You'll see Program 1, as we've mentioned previously, a 15% portion of the budget seems quite high for an administration program. However, just to note that there are our must pays, as we call it, which is our unique cost in the department that no other department necessarily has. For example, our municipal services, our security, our cleaning services, to mention a few, our internet and data lines. So these are costs that really majority is sitting in Program 1. And then Program 2, the 14%, as you know, would house a number of our grants, Landcare, EPWP, and also the significant portion of the earmarked funding. Program 4 still being the biggest portion of the budget because of the CASP grant that resides in that program for implementation. And then veterinary services has up to 13% because of various additional allocations that we've made to assist in terms of capacity and operational cost pressure there. Research being 15%, economic services 5%, education and training 7%, and then rural development 2%. So this is really on par with previous years. However, to also note that specifically Program 4, Program 7, 5, and 5 has increased more than others because we know that they have the most pressure on a recurring basis. So we've really tried to assist from the beginning of the year to secure additional funding towards these programs. This slide, we just wanted to reflect again on the importance of our partnerships, and that remains an approach of the department. It's also a drive of our Treasury that we look at ways to generate more revenue or leverage of partnerships in terms of assisting with carrying costs. And I think this has been a model of the department for the longest time. And this is but some of our partnerships that provides us with additional, not physical cash, but in terms of in-kind funding financially and otherwise of over 100 million. I think it's probably closer to 200 million a year. HOD, I'm going to hand back to you for the final slide.
Thanks, Lindy. This is the last slide from us. Chairperson is just to reiterate again that agriculture operates in a very complex environment, looking at protectionism that is coming from elsewhere in the world, weak multilateral trade systems. You see a departure from the conventions of the WTO, and of course, limited market access. So this is the environment that agriculture in the Western Cape has to contend with. But I must say that our farmers indeed have proven to be extremely resilient over the years. And even in those environments, they've still thrived. But I think it's important that we underscore these realities that confront agriculture in the Western Cape. Of course, the war in Iran, I think, has entered officially its third week. And I think our initial assessment is that there'll be increased in the price of production inputs. And of course, supply chain disruptions, probably similar to what we have witnessed in the years of COVID or even worse. Of course, it's a threat to diversification strategies that had been developed over time, looking at new markets where our products should be going into. Of course, the third point, it's an issue that we presented to the committee early this week around foot and mouth, and the fact that it remains a massive risk, particularly in terms of the export market for the livestock industry, which is quite a big industry in the Western Cape, about 13.5 billion rands and over 50,000 jobs that are linked to that subsector. Of course, as indicated, I think to the committee earlier in the week, we reported about our 21-point plan to cap the spread of FMD, of course, and the fact that we work closely with private veterinarians, and it's all hands on deck in terms of the vaccination program. Item number 5 there, Chairperson, it's just to reiterate again that we are completely aligned to the PSP of the province, and in particular the Apex priority and the other portfolios that we indicated also in terms of the numbers. I think the slide before this one underscored the point, the fact that we believe in what Minister calls PC, which is partnerships and collaboration, and the fact that we leverage over 100 million, which is a strategy indeed that we have embarked upon for many years as a department. And I think it pays dividends in terms of the land reform success in the Western Cape. Number 7, it's about climate change and what we all witnessed this week, and the fact that we continue to partner globally, also with respect to Mediterranean Climate Action Partnership, which is the regions that are identified as Mediterranean climate in the world. Together, we're looking at solutions around which we can, if you like, climate-proof our agricultural sector. And of course, we have partnered with the University of Stellenbosch in terms of their School of Climate Studies. And of course, I think we made this point before that agriculture contribute beyond the primary production, approximately 14% of the GDP. This is what we learn from our colleagues in the Bureau for Food and Agricultural Policy, what we colloquially call a BFAP. Of course, the other issues that agriculture is more than agriculture, and we continue to tell that story of agriculture in the Western Cape. I think that's the last slide from us, Chairperson, and this is just to say agriculture is a business and must be treated as such. And I think in the Western Cape, that's exactly what we are doing together with our stakeholders to support this very important sector of our economy, to create jobs, but more importantly, to ensure that we grow the economy and provide food for the people of the Western Cape, South Africa, and the world. Chairperson, that is our presentation, and then we remain ready to answer whatever questions that the committee may have to the department. Thank you so much.
Thank you, HOD, and thank you to the Minister. Minister, do you want to make the final remark maybe before I hand over to colleagues to ask questions?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Mukhale, and thank you to the colleagues. I think there are 3 very important matters that is being discussed here. You have seen yesterday the importance of agriculture in the main budget that the Minister of Finance has tabled yesterday in the House. For us, that is indicative of the growth figures that Dr. Mukhale has indicated. We're about 11% of the economy in terms of the job creation numbers, in terms of the slides. But there's also a second issue that he raised, and I think this is very important, that we have seen a significant increase in the earmarked allocations as also being reported by the CFO. So there are significant earmarked allocations coming to this vote. And then thirdly, at the last slide, I think we have to be mindful of the main threats that this vote is still facing. The war in the Middle East, it's a real risk. You have all experienced the extreme heat and the heat waves, so you can understand the impact of the drought and the river issues and the dam levels. For us, that is also a major issue of concern that we're currently facing. And then also, as a result of the war in the Middle East, there will be a major impact on the input cost for farmers, particularly in terms of diesel. And I will soon take to the cabinet a recommendations about the impact, the economic impact of the Middle East crisis on the economy of the Western Cape, as well as in agriculture in particular. So those are the issues. I think a very important matter that Dr. Mukhale has also raised. He did refer to the growth in agriculture exports. He has mentioned that in the year 2024, there was, I think, about a 13.7 billion US dollars export for South Africa. That's only agricultural exports, but that's not only from South Africa, from the Western Cape, that's from the whole of South Africa. And I think you have seen that he has indicated that in the year 2025, according to ACBIS, that it is now 15.1 billion US dollars. We have seen a significant increase in our export, but I want to be mindful that we had some serious problems this year at the harbor, and that will definitely have a negative impact when those figures are coming out next year. But otherwise, I'm very happy and satisfied that we are tabling this budget before the Standing Committee for discussions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Paul. Honorable members, there's the budget from the Minister and the HOD and the CFO. Over to you in terms of questions of Class Sisiki. Are there hands? Are there no hands? See Honorable Gonzo. Honorable Gonzo, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the Minister and the HOD on the presentation. Maybe let's start with the current war in Iran and its impact. And I think we are told, I think that the fuel prices have actually gone even above 100 rands per barrel as we sit. Wouldn't this require a review of the budget we were presented with yesterday, let alone the national budget, given the implications which I think HOD spoke to of the harvesting period of the agri industry, you know, and the implication thereof. That's the first one. But second to that, I'm interested to understand whether also doesn't this require a rethink of our own G4J at this point, because as things stands, you know, I think strategy is going to be a function, you know, of operating on your feet. I was saying to somebody, I think here we are, I think people that would need either to be students in an advanced training on chaos theory, on how you operate through chaos, which does not necessarily always give you time to go and sit in a boardroom, do scenario planning and all of these things, because you must think on your feet. And I'm raising this because if you consider that our agri industry, and I raised this thing with Provincial Treasury yesterday, our agri industry is more export reliant. And because of that, it's going to be overly exposed, I think, to the war in Iran and other global dynamics in general. And one is interested, HOD and Minister, to understand how are you ramping up agri-processing, and particularly the manufacturing capability of the agri-economy. Because even in the slide that were given by Provincial Treasury, it demonstrated a very, I think, 2% growth of the manufacturing capability. And I'm not sure, you know, how are we industrializing, or are we deindustrializing and believing that, you know, only through technology-based interventions, which, yes, are important because they help us, you know, with new technologies and others. But I think we've got a reality that we're sitting with of a number of people that are outside of the economy. And therefore, if we're not building the manufacturing or the agri-processing that enables productive capabilities of our own citizens within the agri-industry, we're going to be in trouble. The numbers of the people that are evicted in the in the farm operations actually are also telling the wages that are dwindling in the agri industry itself are also especially on low skills workers. So my issue here is how are we ramping up the agro processing aspect of our agriculture so that indeed we can be able to unlock the very potential that we have so that it's not eroded by some of the export implications thereof. Notwithstanding that, we're still gonna have to, export our finished product. So I just wanted to understand that just from a growth strategy point of view, within the agriculture being the biggest contributor, to our provincial and also, helping in the national economy. So having said that, I think I would never stop to speak in this context of the growth strategy, the locking away of the biggest component of people in the informal sector or in the informal economy. And actually, by virtue of saying that, one is interested to understand, with the department not having any clear strategy which has ever been presented to us around, the informal sector in agriculture. I see in page 572 that you are earmarking some 5 million that will go up to 5.3 by 2029 on mobile abattoirs. What would have actually brought this particular intervention? What informs this as the priority? And I am not sure what is the theory of change behind it. How is it actually unlocking, the informal sector itself? Who would be involved? Is there any studies that have been made of who these mobile abattoirs are going to be going to and who is providing them, the mobile abattoirs? So if you can just give me a sense about this particular program under program 6. And safe to say, I think, Chair, also when it comes to rural development, we see once again, this is a program that does not necessarily get the biggest share of the cake in as far as the budget is concerned. Whilst it has got a serious responsibility, it speaks about agri workers. Actually, in its mandate, Chair, I saw the email when Witzenberg Social Justice wanted to speak to this committee today, where you did not allow them. Whilst if you look at the rural development program, it speaks, amongst other issues, to intervene on matters of labor rights. It's written there, and I'm not sure how would they not have been allowed to come and speak and place their issues here in the committee today, whilst they have made a request through an email to you on this matter. To say, department, please tell me, how are you as the because the HOD, I think in one of the slides, I think which indicates about, I think 6 pillars that is trying to assist, trying to open the slide. Can't see its number. I think it's 12. I think it's 12 if I'm not mistaken, but it says grow the number of Western Cape residents who are able to feed themselves and their families with dignity and sustainability. This basket of programs, one of the issues is to, one, the notion of food gardens as one intervention. And I am not sure how the department actually is working. Is there an integrated approach to this issue of food hunger, which is found in the main in rural households, especially agri farmers or agri workers? You would go to their household and you are gonna find a serious level of food hunger in those. And now my question is, what integrated beyond the food gardens, which actually takes three months or so, for a person to even see, a bunch of spinach, which would still need other things. So I continue to ask this question about an integrated approach towards food hunger, that we can actually see its impact with clear numbers, that from an agri point of view, working are you also working with industry, you know, contribution to whatever little from your budget that you are putting up? Are you working with industry to ensure innovation, especially on food waste that has also been evidence produced to contribute, you know, and save that food that could actually be saved and contribute to these particular families? So those are just my questions for this one, Chair, is to understand that particular ecosystem and interventions around food hunger within the agri space.
Thank you, Honorable Gonzo. Honorable Rand, over to you, sir.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I saw there was a question to you, but maybe you'll answer that afterwards. But just very quickly, I think we've been very lucky to have had a presentation already recently on FMD and talk about some of the challenges facing the agricultural sector. But I also think what's very important to highlight when one looks at this particular budget is page 543. And it is 1, 2, 3, I think it's 4 paragraphs down, where it says all human capital development programs will continue, though some targets have been slightly reduced to remain within the allowed budget. Mainstreaming of youth, women, and people with disabilities will be included in all programs to promote transformation. And, I think there's an old saying, which is, don't try and fix something if it's not broken. And I think what this budget is demonstrating is consistency and stability. Yes, there are some minor reductions, but at the end of the day, this is a budget, I think, that is designed to keep us going in the correct direction. And if one takes into consideration the performance of the Western Cape compared to the rest of the country, we certainly are doing something right. So thank you very much. I think mine is less of a question and just more of a statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Bryant. Honorable members, maybe I will also share this email communication that I received from Witzenberg Justice Coalition. It says, "Dear Chairperson, we trust that you are well and geared up towards the rest of the day. Please be informed that we refer to the Abortion Standing Committee, which the above mentioned Standing Committee meeting dated 13 March 26. Coalition is a local women-led activist movement which organizes around women's struggles in Witzenberg. One of our focus areas is farm evictions and the impact this injustice has on women and children. Witzenberg has been declared a hotspot within the Cape Winelands district, referring to farm eviction. Witzenberg Justice Coalition support that declaration from the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform. Since 1 September 2025, the eviction wave has increased. Witzenberg Justice Coalition would like to request an opportunity to address the Standing Committee today, 13 March 2026, to give an overview about the farm worker crisis in Witzenberg. We trust that our request will be positively considered. Honorable members, as you can deduct from the meeting, it is to address the committee on issues of farm eviction. So I replied to Naomi to say the meeting scheduled for March 30 is dedicated to the tabling of the Department of Agriculture's budget. As the matter you raised falls outside this specific agenda, it cannot be presented during today's session. We will identify a convenient date for the committee to address your topic. Our procedural officer will advise you once a suitable slot is identified within the parliamentary program. I also indicated that you are welcome to attend today's meeting to make submissions specifically regarding the budget. The relevant documents can be accessed here, which I provided the link. For your information, I've also attached PMG report regarding the matters you raised. which should include established action plans. This pertains to a joint oversight visit conducted by the former Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development during the 6th Parliament. I trust this report will be helpful. So, honorable members, this is what I have communicated. I just wanted to provide that clarity that Honorable Bryant have asked me to maybe answer that question. With that said, honorable members, I'm going to hand over to the Minister and HOD to answer the questions that pertain to their relevant areas. Honorable Ngondo, is that a legacy hand or is that a response to my?
Thank you, Chair. Can I continue?
Please, Minister, you can proceed.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you to the members for the questions. I would like to make rather a correction on both the side of the committee and on the side of the department. I don't think we must talk about the war in Iran. We must talk about the crisis in the Middle East, because it is not only the war in Iran, it is a bigger Middle East crisis, and there's about 700 million people in the Middle East. That's number one. Number two, I think Honorable Member Nkondlo raised the issue of the price of oil. I think at the time it was about 80 US dollar per barrel. I think it was trading now around about 100 US dollar per barrel. And yesterday, the Iran has indicated as one of the biggest suppliers of oil in the world that it can go up to about 200 US dollar per barrel. So this have major implications. I know in the previous time when it was 80 US dollar per barrel, we had to make significant adjustments when it rose to about 120 US dollar per barrel. And if people are talking about 200 US dollar per barrel, then I think we will be in serious trouble. So that assumption of Honorable Member Nkondlo, it is absolutely right. But we have seen that the Minister of Finance yesterday, she has made some significant allocations for unforeseen and unavoidable allocations in the budget for multiple things, particularly relating to disasters and so on. I think the issue of the chaos theory and the complexity theory, I would like to add in the implications for the G4J, it is huge. That's why I have asked that a report be brought to the cabinet about the implications of the Middle East crisis for the Western Cape economy. And you would know that this is beyond just simply the Middle East. It is into the whole of Europe and other parts of the world. So this thing is not only relating to the Middle East, but to fully understand the complexity of that, we will do a study, collect the initial data, and then we will brief also the committee of these implications. I want to indicate to you now that I think it's going to be huge implications that we will have to take into account during the adjustment budget later this year. I think members of this committee will also know that I did report last year that we have now completed the study for the exports strategy. This also take into account the instability and the global change and the issue of the trade war. And so for us, we will make some adjustments when I table the export strategy for public, to launch it publicly. I think the Honourable Member Nkondlo is also right when she speak about the scaling up of the agro-processing, and specifically she referred to the manufacturing. That's why you will see, and in fact she herself has referred to I think it is let me see, the 5.3 million in the outer year in terms of the agri-processing and in terms of the equitable share earmarked funding. She was correct when she said there was about 5 million for the new year, 5.1 for the mid-year, and then she referred to the 5.3 year in relations to the mobile abattoirs, but the colleagues, veterinary services will then specifically answer questions as to in terms of the data and the reason and the rationale and the deployment of these mobile abattoirs. So that is very important. I think what we are facing here is a major risk, and we will certainly see, as the honourable member have indicated, and as Mogale, whenever we meet, he says to me, Minister, we are now in a permanent state of chaos, permanent state of disasters. We move from one disaster to another disaster. And I want to register it now already. The dam levels in the Western Cape, as reported by Minister Bradell and the Disaster Center and the committee that is chaired by Honourable Member Dave Bryant, the dam levels are significantly lower, and there will be some major risks coming forward in some of these particular areas. We have also seen, and Mogale and I have been under severe pressure, and we discussed it. There are huge issues in the grain industry in terms of the input cost. We have seen that South Africa import cheap grain and wheat in a time when we are in the highest harvest season, and there is huge issues there. There's some research that's being done by BFAP, but we believe this is also a matter that we need guidance from Grain SA, because they are the commodity organization. They must guide us, and they must also show us how they can also support the wheat farmers, because this is a major issue that we are currently facing. I take note of the issues that Honourable Member Dave Bryan also raised. I agree with him that in chaos you need also a sense of stability and to give direction, because if you change in a crisis situation everything, then you lose the essence of what you are busy with. But the comment that I also heard, we have to be flexible, and that's exactly what this budget does. It is flexible. You have heard the minister yesterday spoken about some changes in some of the national conditional grants, and we have absorbed that in our situation and in our allocation letter. But I would like, Chair, with your permission, to hand over to Dr. Mogale in terms of some of those other questions that was raised, but I am happy to come back to this committee after I had briefed the cabinet about the impact of the crisis in the Middle East. It is severe because we, for example, export significant number of fruit. The biggest fruit festival you find in Berlin and in Madrid, and the biggest food shows and agri-processing you find in Dubai at Gulf Food, and I was there. And Gulf Food is now coming later this year to the Western Cape to present Afri-Food, part of the agri-processing business. So there are major risks, and the risk is emerging as we see daily on the national television. So I hand over to Dr. Mogale, and with your permission, Chair, I hand first back to you.
Over to you, Dr. Mogale. Thank you, Minister.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Minister, for that input there and the correction. I couldn't stop thinking when the crisis started in the Middle East, and I look back in 2020, it was on the 5th of March when the first case of COVID hit South Africa. And I think with that also, there was a lot of rethinking and replanning and readjusting and reprioritizing. And I think Minister is spot on in terms of what we will have to do. And I think it's going to be the whole of government. If there must be retabling and all those kind of things, I think government will be guided at the right time when there's a lot of clarity as to what it means for us in the sector. and of course, I would imagine other sectors as well. So I'm going to ask Bongiswa to respond briefly, Chair, with your permission, on the issue of agri-processing and what we're doing there, and the extent to which we prioritizing it as one of the opportunities we have to support, particularly informal traders or informal producers in the rural landscape. And I've also asked you to talk a bit about the mobile abattoir, which Honorable Nkondo raised, something that I'm personally excited about, because I think it opens a lot of opportunities for rural producers within the market space. The issue around rural development, I must indicate to you, Chair, that we're working quite closely with our stakeholders, that is the commercial agriculture, but more importantly, we work with other agribusinesses and other businesses in the rural areas. For instance, this is the only department in South Africa that has got a dedicated directorate or a program that looks at issues of farm worker development, and in terms of the prestige Agri Worker Awards, which is something that we do every year, and I think it's been growing for the past almost 2 decades. Last year alone, we leveraged about R1 million that is coming from the private sector to support the work we do. With respect to the food security issue, I think honorable member would be aware of the work that we're doing around the food gardens and the extent to which we link up with civil society structures. But I want to also indicate that organized agriculture work closely with Food Forward SA, which is an organization that also assists in rural communities in terms of donating whatever food that could not be sold, and they collect and share those with communities. And I think there is quite a lot that is happening around this issue, and I'm happy to share the report, Chair, which the last time we committed to share, and I'm sure it was shared. If it was not, we will correct that with respect to the food garden study that was done, which indicate the impact of our investment across the province in terms of the food gardens. So with that said, Chair, I want to hand over to Bongiswa just to reflect on the agri-processing and refer to the issue of mobile abattoirs as to who's going to benefit and whether there are studies that were conducted and how is it going to be implemented in the coming year. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, HOD. Over to you, Bongiswa.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chairperson, in responding actually to the question from Member Ngondlo, I must actually mention that since the previous administration, agri-processing actually has been the priority in this province. And even in this current term, actually, it still is actually the priority. As a result, Elsenberg, in responding actually to that priority, or let me say the department in responding to the priority, has actually established the Agri Hub, which is actually the incubation facility where we actually get to train your aspiring agri-processors and also, those that are already, in agri-processing, focusing mainly actually on product development, product improvement, providing actually technical advice, and actually also, training, the people on the actual processing actually itself, and facilitate actually funding where possible, and also, to respond to the demand for the service. The agri-processing on wheels project is also an expansion, to make sure that we are really taking actually agri-processing to the rural areas where, there is actually also a need, in an attempt actually to make sure that we are creating jobs in those rural communities. So those actually are the projects that actually have been, are really prioritized in this department. And again, on the project around mobile abattoirs, I must mention that as a department, every project or every work that we do actually gets informed by research. That's actually our approach as the department. With regards actually to the mobile abattoirs, there's been various evaluations that have been done in this department, and one of those is actually meat safety, where the problem actually of informal slaughtering actually has been mentioned actually in there, and in fact it is actually an ongoing project. And again, also we've also through actually our assessment and actually the studies, we've seen a lot actually of smaller producers that are actually within the informal economy who actually who unfortunately do not sometimes actually have got enough numbers to go to the formal abattoirs, and hence we actually came with the project actually on agri-processing. And again, the take actually in there is that even though we're providing mobile abattoirs, the intent is actually to make sure that we take those producers down the value chain to make sure that if the meat is actually slaughtered, then it actually gets to be processed and or let me say add value actually into it, so that there could actually be a better market for it, and also that we actually making sure that the food that is actually produced actually in there is safe. So that's actually that from our side. And I must mention that on the project itself, there is actually a full concept and actually a proposal that is actually well researched. So we can actually share that actually as well. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you,
Chair,
Mayor.
We submit
Back to you,
those are the responses to the questions that were raised. I think Member Bryant was mainly a comment, and indeed that's what we do, given the constant reprioritizing given the fiscal environment. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Ndate Swopeza. I've got two questions that are to the CFO. On your program of farm workers or rural development, I do note that you indicated that you raised about 11 million from the private sector. Your allocation is 23 million, which is an increase from the previous year. And I must say also, I compliment you for doing that. Just a question as to where that 11 million fits in. Is it part of the allocation that you have made, or are you still going to raise it separately from this 23 million that we have allocated to this particular program? And maybe just for the members of the committee, if you can just briefly maybe run through what you do with regards to rural development coordination and what you do with regards to social facilitation and farm worker development, just for committee to have a clarification, so that even when we engage the Witzenberg community, then we are at least on the same page in terms of your work, what you do, and what is that you can do and what is that you cannot do. The other question that I just want to ask, and this question I've been asking maybe to the minister with regards to the Elsenbeck College, I do note the allocation is reduced from 84 to 79 million. So I think the question really primarily is on page 574, is that we are not taking Elsenbeck out of the Department of Agriculture into National Education Department. I just want to get clarity there. The last question from my side will be on your allocation, your main allocation on page 547. On treasury funding, the statement says equitable share provision has increased by 87 million from 2025-2026, but obviously you have revised it with conditional grant decreasing by 268 million. So taking the 268 million, which was a conditional grant, what was the real increase? Maybe just the real increase. 268 million was a conditional grant. We take it out. What was the real increase from the previous year without the 268 million? If that can be explained. Thank you very much. I see the hand of Honorable Ngondlo. Over to you, Ngondlo.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm sure the department would help us to understand and interpret what is the mandate of the Program 8 on rural development. As it reads in 577, sub-program 8.35, farm worker development is to enhance the image and the socio-economic conditions of agri-workers and their family members through facilitation of training and development initiatives in order to improve their quality of life. It further, if you go into page 538, under rural development, it explains what it did during 2025-26 financial year, and it further says that these initiatives addressed critical social challenges such as substance abuse prevention, GBV, and others, and then it ends with labor rights and responsibilities. So, Chair, I will keep on, I think, raising this matter that, you see, when we consider the quality of life of farm workers, yes, we would always support the notion of their recognition and applaud the department for the awards working with the industry. But I think in everything, we must always create the balance, that it can't be when there is things that are being raised in the quality of life of farm workers, we want to look the other way and only be satisfied with what we think makes us feel good. So I think the issue here is that in what this sub-program needs to look at, if it talks about the quality of life of farm workers, because what we are talking about of the situation of evictions is including the quality of life of farm workers, their families, their children. And it is a matter similar to what we saw yesterday. We had a male, a white person, if I must say, who actually presented a triple BE critique in a provincial treasury that had nothing to do with the budget, and he was allowed to actually make even a official presentation with slides. So I don't think there's anything wrong for the WJC for it to be sent to another committee if they want to raise this matter as an issue of budget and how the finances of the fiscus are allocated. Having said that, Chair, I would like to ask in page 565 that on the expenditure trends analysis, this export certification online system, I can see that this would be funded to the tune of about, I think they're saying here, around 126.472 million. Can you, up to 152, can you explain about this system? Is it an online system? How does it work? What exactly are we paying for in this regard? Secondly, is to understand this early retirement and voluntary exit program. How many officials of the Department of Agriculture have actually taken the voluntary packages? Which levels in the structure of the department are they, and what succession planning to ensure that when they leave, you know, at least institutional memory and their experience is actually retained. So if the department can explain that. And then in page 571, under the agricultural economic services, thanks to the HOD and I think the director around the agri-processing with a strong focus on subsistence and SMME. I think one would be interested to know that beyond the abattoirs, and I would like to see the study they are referring to, because one actually is raising a concern of talking about it if you are also not resolving the issue of the bylaws that are happening at a municipal level. And actually, I must commend, I think, Minister and the HOD with the fact that we are even talking about the informal sector, you know, as part of the focuses of this department. I think that one must be commended. And I think we're just going to be dealing with the mechanics of what is the most efficient way to deal with this issue. And I want to say, in addition to looking at abattoirs with the animal health aspect thereof, there is also an elephant in the room in how our bylaws at this point are able, because those spaces, you know, the communities where these farmers are operating from, sometimes the whole notion, you know, of bringing just a mobile abattoir is not necessarily sufficient to resolve their problem. And I would like to know who is going to be providing these mobile abattoirs. You know, do you already have a service provider that's going to, in your study that you have done, who is going to be providing, who is manufacturing these mobile abattoirs that you are referring to, and how much money in the budget is actually going to those programs mentioned in 571 of subsistence and SMME, and to ask whether the veterinary services, we know now that there is going to be much focus on it. Is our capacity, are we having no unfilled post within the veterinary services? That's my first question. Secondly, is to ask whether our demand for our veterinary services, are we up to the current pressure of the food and mouth and other biosecurity needs? So I'm asking HOD and the minister whether, when we look at the capacity, which I think you did mention when you were presenting to us, you know, the pressure that we're having, you know, of laboratories, let alone the specialists. Are we having the capacity, you know, for veterinary services? Are we budgeting sufficiently, you know, in thinking ahead? And I think that is one issue that one is interested to look at, you know, at this point with this budget, and also thinking towards, you know, the budget adjustment or the outer years towards the end of MTEF.
Thank you, Honorable Ngontlo. Over to you, Minister and HOD.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the members for those questions. I would very much like to just talk about the colleagues, the vets. I'm not the vet, so the vets must speak about the abattoirs and those issues. But what I do know is that the issue of animal slaughtering, we know that it happens also in places where we think we need some more structure, more safety, more health provisions. And that's why these are very important issues. And there's a shortage specifically of, when you talk about informal farmers, when they want to slaughter, many times there are not enough facilities. I know at some place people had to drive 200-300 kilometers, informal farmer to slaughter. Now that is, I don't think that is a viable situation for people to go and drive so far, especially also in the Karoo, but the colleagues will speak about that. I also know that there is, for example, a current abattoir in Hopefield. That abattoir is also being considered to close down, and that would be a major risk for those small-scale farmers in that particular area, also the poultry farmers. But then the Honourable Member raised the issue of capacity. I think she's right. I think Honourable Member Dave Bryan also privately raised with me the issue of the capacity of our veterinary services and the foot and mouth disease. I would like to respond in this way, and the department can also add. I think what we currently have is the issue of, firstly, nobody has the capacity, no state department has the capacity to deal with FMD without involving the private vets. That's why we have already had 26 private vets registered and deployed to assist us, because if we don't do that, we only have 8 state vets. And if we have about 500,000 livestock, it's absolutely impossible to do that without involving the private sector, and we've done that very successfully. And I think all the credit that came to me belongs to Dr. Magatla, Dr. Mukhale and Bonkeswa and her team, and Dr. Jin. They have done an outstanding job in this, dealing with our capacity constraints. But I think when I looked at what is the world norm per 100,000, per million population, I think we only have, from capacity, this is now South Africa, we only have 25% of the capacity that we actually need. So in other words, we are 75% understaffed with vets in South Africa benchmark against international norms. So there are serious capacity constraints in South Africa. So the other capacity issues that you've raised, what happens if one of our vets go to a farm and a farmer call them and say, we want you to have a look at, or we suspect there's foot and mouth disease. Our state vet goes there, look at the clinical signs. If they see that our clinical signs, they take a sample. That sample is going to Honest put in Pretoria. That can take a number of days, if not weeks, because they have to deal with the whole country. And we know that is absolutely putting a lot of pressure on that system. So for that reason, we have written to, in fact, I wrote to the national minister, because our provincial veterinary lab in Stellenbosch is a level 2 lab. And if you want to do some testing for FMD, you need a level 3 accreditation. So I wrote to the national minister and asked, can you please assist us? We want to apply for our vet lab to have a level 3 accreditation. They have immediately sent their inspectors, and there are some discussions between the national department and our own veterinary services, and perhaps Dr. Magatla can give us an update on that process. But in addition, Chair, I also wrote a letter to the rector and the vice chancellor of the University of Stellenbosch, because they also have laboratories. So I've also asked them for laboratory assistance in this particular regard. Is one lab enough to do with this with capacity? I certainly don't think so. That is certainly, it was a wise decision, and this committee had also a role in it. I think over the number of years, it was about 27 million rand that we invested in the upgrading of that lab. And we are very thankful that that has happened, because now we have some capacity. But I think, if you ask me, I want a 500 million rand lab that can serve Eastern Cape, Western Cape, and the Northern Cape, because we've got the capacity, and that is what I want to do. I told you many times, I don't want the Western Cape to succeed. I want South Africa to succeed. And therefore, a lab, and I have met yesterday the National Minister of Agriculture from Germany, and these are also matters that we have discussed. And the National Minister and Minister John Steenhuisen has also signed an agreement on cooperation between Germany and South Africa for FMD, foot and mouth disease, and I will certainly also stick a claim into that, but not only for the Western Cape. I think we need to work with the Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, and Western Cape, and Mukhale is already in that tune to cooperate with them. But there were some other questions about the budgets. There were questions about the total increase by 128 million. And the increase in conditional grants. There were some specific questions that Honorable Member Kontlo asked from the Blue Book, but I think the CFO is sitting ready with those figures to answer those particular questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Over to you, HOD and CFO.
Chair, thank you very much. I will respond to a few questions, and the finance staff I'll give to my CFO. Honorable Nkondlo raised an issue around veterinary capacity. We have been favored by Treasury. They've given us, I think, about 13 million rands to appoint about 20 persons that will assist us in terms of the vaccination program that is underway. And Minister is correct in terms of working with the private veterinarians, and they are quite committed to work with us around the vaccination agenda that we have embarked upon. With regard to the issue around the mobile abattoirs, I think up to this point there were studies, and now that we've got allocation, we'll start with the procurement processes, starting with the from the 1st of April going forward. And I think the issue that Member Nkondlo is raising on the bylaws, I think it's an important issue, but it's something that I think we also raised when we engaged the committee earlier this week, that we continue to raise these issues with municipalities, because in the end, the bylaws remains the mandate of municipalities as to how we need to deal with the issues around the informality, in particular within the rural environment. With respect to the number of people that will go on retirement in terms of the ERP, in the department, we're sitting with 22 persons that applied and were all approved to leave. And I think we can share the information with the committee in terms of the levels and so on. And I think that is why today, Honorable Chair and members, I've got about 19 colleagues who are joining as part of building that capacity in the department, because we also acknowledge that we need to give past experience to the young people who must take over in these roles when the incumbents leave the system. So that is, we can share the information, I think, as with the committee in terms of the levels, but I must indicate that most of them are between levels 2, level 3 and level 10. The bulk of the colleagues are in those levels, and at senior level, I think it's only one person who's going to be leaving us, but we'll share the information with the committee. I'll ask Dr. Msiza to respond on the issue on the ECOS, and if also Jackie can talk to the issues around what we're doing, in particular on Program 8 with the rural development and everything that goes within that program. Just to correct, Honorable Chair, we're not raising 11 million. We raised 1 million last year to support what we do with respect to the Prestige Agri-Worker Awards. But like everything else, we don't receive money from the private sector. But the money goes into assets and everything else that we do to support the farmers. It doesn't really come to the department. So I must just clarify that. And Linda will respond in terms of the real increase that the chair had raised. And Elsenberg College, it is not our intention to surrender the college to national. And that is why it's now in terms of the arrangement with the University of Stellenbosch, it is fully in the Western Cape. I don't think the mandate we have from the executive authorities that the Elsenberg College must remain in the Western Cape and support the agricultural sector right here in the Western Cape. So Lindy first, and then Jackie, and then Dr. Msiza.
Thank you very much, Chair and HOD. Maybe just in terms of the real increase, Chairperson, you're correct. The previous year figure, and in terms of adjustment budget, had the rollover included of over 280 million, if I'm not, or 277 million, I think. In terms of the cost rollover for disasters specifically, which was the big number of 269 million, and then a small portion in terms of the college, which was approved. This year, you would rightfully see that significant decrease. But I can say in terms of because we also report and present, our slides also present on baseline. So you compare the baseline of the previous year rather than your adjusted budget because of these once-off exceptions. So the increase in total grants was 1.9 million, of which about 1.7 was CASP. So from the baseline of the previous year to this year, to 26-27, it was 1.9 million increase. I think Yeah, that was me actually.
Jackie?
Thank you, Chair and members. I think important to note is the fact that we have an integrated rural development sector strategy that was developed by the National Department in 2023, and the province is now aligned to that, and we've developed a rural development framework. We are still in the consultation phase, but that will be presented to the PTM on Monday, after which at some stage I would assume we would also take it to the standing committee. So in terms of the rural development coordination, the aim is to really coordinate interventions, projects, development in the rural space. And as such, we've established a rural development forum. We meet on a quarterly basis where we bring together not just the three spheres of government, but also the private sector. We bring together industry partners as well as civil society. And the aim of it is to ensure joint planning and joint implementation. So, Chair, what we also do in terms of coordination, we have established and developed a a rural safety strategy. It is completely in line with our provincial safety strategy, and on a quarterly basis, we also meet with SAPs and other stakeholders in terms of rural safety initiatives. We also monitor what is happening in terms of farm attacks and so on. And we roll out interventions such as your safe transportation of agri workers, pedestrian safety. And we've also partnered with the NSRI in terms of water safety, where we do water safety awareness sessions at schools, specifically our rural schools, and survival swimming initiatives in the rural areas. Then in terms of social facilitation, the focus and aim is really around education and awareness raising. We roll out information and awareness sessions throughout the province, but it's also to provide our offerings as a department as well as other stakeholders. So for example, when we do go into a community, there will be a presentation or a session on agri-processing. There will potentially be a session on our colleagues from the college in terms of, if people or children, students want to further their education, but then there will even be a follow-up. So in some instances, our colleagues from economics will go back to the same community and train the community in agri-processing. What we also do in these information sessions often is talks on health and wellness, as well as health screening. That is often, it's part of our interventions to also speak on GBV. We partner with the NPA, but also with SAPS in that regard. Other initiatives is labor rights and responsibility training. There's an aspect of tenure security as well. We also roll out healthcare training. We've done that in the Cape Winelands area. In the new financial year, it will be done in the Overberg. And then some of our interventions are also linked to the household census that was done. As Bongi indicated earlier on, our interventions is based on research. It's really based on what it is that is required in terms of what of studies that was conducted. And as such, we've done these studies within rural development. And so some of the issues like substance abuse, financial literacy are all some of the needs that was identified. So we roll out financial literacy training as well as participate in community outreaches through other departments such as your Tusong outreaches. And then lastly, the farm worker development sub unit or sub-project also takes care of our community development officers. In other departments like health or local government, they are referred to as your CDWs. So we also have our CDWs, and often complaints are referred to them for assessment and investigation before it's either referred to the local municipality, the national department when it comes to evictions, or even if it requires our sector department's support. So what we try and do is also to ensure access to health facilities, access to education, access to whatever is required at farm level or household level. And then you are aware of the Prestige Agri Awards, our competition that is rolled out on an annual basis. The winner of that competition becomes part of the Prestige Agri Worker Forum. And that forum meets on a quarterly basis where they also advise the Minister of Agriculture in terms of any issues that is experienced at grassroots level. And then that is either referred or it is followed up by our CDOs for interventions. That is in a nutshell. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Oshodi. From my side, I think the ECOS, for starters, the genesis thereof, it emanates from the need that the program had experienced earlier on as far as processing export certification was concerned. Then there was all of a sudden a exponential increase in export certification, and initially when it was still rudimentary, we just used an Excel spreadsheet, but over time it grew up to such a complex system. Until then we decided to rock in the developers who started developing the ECOS. But unfortunately, the growth thereof kept the growth of the demands and the development were going hand in hand. And it has over time, fortunately, grew to a very nice functional support office system, whereby it really becomes central to our exports support. But over time, what we did as well is that the export part was, the ECOS itself was built such that it could be increased on a modular base as and when different functions and so forth comes in. So that thing has been happening behind the scenes, but unfortunately, over time, the funding for the developers and so forth had to be sourced in from our own operational funds, and the CFO, I think, at some stage we were worried that he was really running out of patience, because she had to juggle around money and really source money to ensure that the ECOS is running. But the extra funding will ensure that that growth continues and to ensure that the ECOS becomes what it was meant for. And over time, it built in other functions, such that currently it's used also as a backbone of the ESET, whereby the electronic certification of export certification are now being housed or supported by the ECOS. And finally, one of the other added benefit of the ECOS is that it also assisted to ameliorate the capacity constraint, in a sense that we were able to use our capacity of human personnel and automate the office, or the what you call it, manual functions, and really release our officials to really do the things that they were specialized. So in that sense, it also helped a big time to ensure that our increase, notwithstanding the increase of our human personnel, was able to be sustainably meshed. And currently, I think it's still a system in progress, and added, as I said, added capital will really ensure that it becomes the thing that it was meant for. And currently other sectors like the health, the municipalities and so forth have really shown interest. And as and when the developers and the capacity becomes possible, we are modularly increasing it as we go. Thank you, Chair. I hope I have covered what was required. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, those are our response. Thank you so much.
Thank you, HOD, and thank you, Minister and colleagues. Honorable members, are there other questions that you might want to ask? If there are none, then we're going to move to the next part of our program. I don't see any hands. Honorable Gondlo?
Can I ask, I think it could have been missed, if there is any vacancies in the veterinary services from the department currently. Is there any unfilled post in that program?
Over to you, HOD.
Chair, we would like to share that information with the members, if you allow us. I don't have the information top of my head, but I would like to share that information.
Okay, Honorable Ngondo is satisfied with the answer. Thank you very much. With that said, are there members of the public who wants to maybe pose a question?
From the media, Chair, excuse me. From the media, maybe?
Are you welcome? You member of the public? Go ahead, Clayton.
Certainly. Good day, everyone. Clayton Swart from Farmers Weekly. I have been out of circulation and out of the country for a bit, but now that I'm back, it's good to see the Minister and HOD and team in action again, and my honor to ask some questions. Just one, maybe you covered it in other years, but with the flooding in Clan William, and especially the road being swept away, I don't see that in your sort of infrastructure priority. So maybe you've addressed that, but sort of to prevent that, especially around the big risks and things like that. And then secondly, I would probably, with Minister Meyer, like to follow up on the foot and mouth disease and sort of his action plan. But of course, we'll wait for details as he presents it to the Western Cape Cabinet on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Clayton. I think some questions are good that you can have, a media session with the minister. But I think the question around the Glen William Dam, maybe the minister, you can address that question. Thank you.
I will hand that over to the Sustainable Resource Use Management team because they are in very good contact, except to say that I did go there and I met the project manager. His name is also Paul Kruger from the Department of Water and Sanitation, National Department. When I was there, I saw that there was good progress in terms of what they are doing and the release of the water in the system. But that was last year. I don't have the recent update on that, so maybe the department can give an update. But as to, in terms of not only Glen William, but also the issue of the Citrusdal bridge that was washed away, you will recall that Dr. Mughal and I went there physically and we handed over a check of 15 million rand for the rehabilitation to the Water Users Association. And we asked that they please make sure and take ownership that the river is clean so that we don't receive a repeat of the situation that was done. I've also made a commitment that this is a matter now for the Department of Infrastructure. And I haven't seen the latest work there, but perhaps the department knows something about that. In terms of the issue of foot and mouth disease, the department has developed a very scientific 21-point plan in terms of dealing with foot and mouth disease. And that information, our journalist that is back back into the country, we are happy to share that information directly between the department and the journalist, because that was also a presentation that we've made to the media, but we're happy to share that information. In terms of the other work, I hand over to the HOD.
Thank you, Minister. And obviously, I just want to maybe make a ruling. The journalist to be addressing the chairperson of the standing committee and the minister also to speak through the chair to the journalist. Thank you. Over to you, HOD.
Chair, thanks. I'm passing it to Asia Peterson, who's the program manager for SRUM.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members. We have invested, as Melissa indicated, significantly in stabilizing the riparian zone, and specifically by removing invasive alien plants, but also doing rehabilitation of the riparian area to ensure that we have stable banks and that we don't have further erosion of the banks. With regards to the bridge, that was one of the major challenge, was that there was significant invasive aliens on the riparian zone and growing in islands on in stream. So that had eventually collected during the flood. It resulted in lots of debris collection, and that is where the buildup of water and that force had resulted in the collapse of that bridge. But with the Water User Association, their investment and agreement to do follow-up on the invasive alien plants that is removed, we have a long-term plan that they are investing in the follow-up once we remove the invasive alien plants. In addition to that, with the allocation, the 300 million allocation that we receive for disaster, flood disaster relief, we've allocated 37 million to the Citrusdal Water User Association, and they, with their own funding, have done designs, engineering designs to remove sediment that is built up, and of course the debris that was there. But I thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's the response from us.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable members, I'm going to allow Minister and HOD to give their closing remarks before we proceed with the next part of the program. Minister, over to you, your closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Chair, for this opportunity to table our budget proposals emanating from the budget that the Minister of Finance has tabled. And I think we are really appreciated that the National Minister was also in the chamber when our Provincial Minister has tabled the budget. I have also witnessed in the main budget, not of this department, but in the whole of government, particularly in infrastructure, that we have received significant amount, I think in the region of 150 million from the national government into infrastructure over the last 18 months. And I think that was very significant, and I want to thank them for the work. There was quite a lot of preparation in putting this budget together, through the MTech engagements, through the program managers, to the engagements with the national department, through the budget processes, to the MTech and the technical processes. I want to thank the CFO, all the program managers, and the MTech engagements with the national department and the provincial treasury. But I think one thing we are very thankful is that if you have listened to the minister yesterday, he was speaking quite a lot about the importance of agriculture. The Premier told me, he said, what's happening here? This budget is only wine, rooibos tea, and honey. And so I think I want to also acknowledge the work of this committee and in the budget committee for pushing for more money for agriculture. And I'm very thankful for that. And I'm also thankful for the CFO who has skillfully put this budget together, because there's quite a lot of things that she has to put together. There's a lot of earmark allocations. And as you have seen, there were some reductions in the conditional grants, but I think she has put a good technical budget before us. And we're happy to table it before this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. HOD, your closing remarks.
Chair, thank you very much, Minister. And I have an arrangement that after he speaks, that concludes the business. And I want to thank you and thank the Minister and also thank my team for their hard work and also assure the committee that we remain committed to change lives in the Western Cape with the 1.1 billion rands budget for 2026-27. Thank you so much.
Really, from our side, really thank you very much for the work that you're doing. And really, we wish you all the best in the fight against the foot and mouth disease. And obviously, the challenges that are being posed by the issue of the Middle East. Really, we wish you best of luck. We are here to support you. Should you really need to go back to ask for more money, we are here to support you. Please call on us. But really, thank you very much, Minister, HOD, CFO, and all the officials for all the hard work that you are putting out there. With that said, really, you are excused, and thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Pleasure. Bye. Honorable members, can I allow 30 seconds or a minute just to get a body break, and then we can move to resolutions and to the report after that. Can we be back, let's say, 15:57? Is that fine?
From my side, why so long silence? The silence all round, member.
Just
waiting for the tea.
taking a body break.
Yes.
From the chair.
Colleagues, it's 15:57. We can now move to the next part of the program, which is the consideration and obviously adoption of this report of vote 11. With that said, can I take it that honorable members are happy with the report that has been tabled by the minister, that we can move to adopt the report?
Chairperson, can I propose that we adopt the report?
Thank you, Honorable Member Bryant. Move that we adopt the report. Can I see with a show of hands in terms of support for the report? My hand is also up. Honorable Brenkes, are you in the meeting? Honorable Vessel, are you in the meeting? Honorable Van Wyk, are you in the meeting?
Chair, perhaps they're still on the body break.
Hi, sorry, Chair, my hand struggles to go up, but I think it's up now. Can you just confirm for me, please?
Okay, I can confirm there are 4 hands. Mrs. Nikak, are we good?
Yes, Chairperson, there was 4, Member Mbombo, Member Vessels, Member Bryant, and yourself that supported the vote. I note Member Nkondlo's hand is up as well.
Member Nkondlo?
Chair, you a little bit confused me because I did not understand when you say people to support the report. What does that mean? Because I'm not sure whether this is the time where we declare whether we support the vote or not. So maybe it's the language that is confusing me. So if I can understand so that I can declare what is my vote on what is my position on the budget vote of agriculture.
Yeah, I have moved that we consider and adopt the draft committee report on vote 11. Yeah, that is the hands that I have asked for in support. And obviously, you know, now we can move those not in support.
Yes, Chair.
Are you there? Yeah.
Yes, I am here. I think we invoke our Rule 90 not to support the vote. And I am not sure when we say the report, what are we referring to? Because I don't see any report. I'm not sure whether you are mentioning the book. So that's why I'm saying the language. The language becomes important because now you are confusing me a bit.
Okay. No, my sincere apology, Honorable Gondo, the vote, the budget vote, not the report. Apologies.
Thank you, Chair. As the ANC, we do not support the vote.
Thank you, Honorable Gonzo. Honorable members, Honorable Brenkes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, as the Alzheimer, we do not support the vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nikak, is Honorable Adams a voting member?
Pardon, Chair, yes, he is. Sorry, I'm just on another screen typing the report. Yes, Member Adams is a voting member.
Mr. Adams? Mr. Adams, going once, going twice, maybe still on a body break. But that said, honorable members, the yes have it. So can we see you flight the report? Report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism on Vote 11, Agriculture, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B1 2026, dated 13 March 2026, as follows. The Standing Committee on Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism, having considered the subject of Vote 11, Agriculture, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B1 2026, referred to it in accordance with Standing Rule 188, reports that it supports the vote. In accordance with Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress and Al Jamaa expressed their minority view to not support the vote. That's the report, honorable members. Thank you. Can I ask for a move to support, to adopt the report?
I move that we adopt the report, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Bryant. Any seconder? Mbombo, thank you very much. Members, we can now move to resolutions. Are there any resolutions coming out of this deliberations that you need to note? Honorable Gondlo, I see your hand.
Yes, Chair. My first resolution, I think, is to request the department to come and at a time appropriate to our schedule to brief us on the integrated rural development strategy they spoke of, including the rural safety that is under Program 8. I think that is important for us to get to understand what is in the rural development Program 8, so that we are on the same page about what is our expectation of this. Secondly, is to request that the department, I think through the G4J coordination, that between our Department of Agriculture, the Department of Economic Development, and local government, that the issue of the bylaws that relates to informal farmers, including the issue of animal health management and administration, gets to be attended to, whether both in the red tape reduction unit, but generally on how that situation could be improved in the best interest of both the regulatory environment, which bylaws set to enforce, but also to without taking away or destroying the livelihoods of informal farmers. Because one believes that if the G4J indeed is about growth and is about increasing jobs, it is in the interest of government, as it does with commercial businesses, to do the same in actually creating an enabling environment for the informal sector. So that is why I'm asking that we do ask our Department of Agriculture, working with local government and economic development in a coordinated manner, to see how this issue of bylaws, because I know that in the red tape reduction unit, both with provincial treasury actually and economic development, the matter of bylaws, they do give inputs into the bylaws and how they are supporting or constraining economic development at that level. And then lastly, Chair, I think it's important, and I want to register here in the meeting, that I think we really need to try and be as fair as we can to everybody, especially members of the public who request to make presentations in our committees, because I'm sure we are aware by now, and unless we do have evidence that the departments, when they were developing these budgets, would have gone knock door to door in each household, providing them with a budget, that when members of the public are requesting to make inputs, I don't think it is fair for us to say, if they've not written anything about budget, we would say, no, they must come to other meetings, because members of the public, an issue that they raise relates onto how we ensure that through our work and oversight, we enable them to partake in budget process and other mechanisms. So I just want to raise that issue, Chair, because I just found it very unfair that the WJC was told that it cannot make its presentation whilst you allowed them to come to the meeting, because to make that determination that their submission is not budget, I think for me was not backed by any evidence, as I made reference to the fact that yesterday we had people who didn't speak to the budget but spoke to BBE, and they were allowed, in the very same rules of the same WCPP. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Ngontlo. I think the issue that you are raising is very important. Maybe we must just also guide our constituency when they want to come or write to us, to get a better understanding of, when they can present and on what items. Because for me, the message was really quite broad, was not narrowed to to the budget that I made the ruling based on that, but I think it's a lesson learned for future. Honorable Brenkhuis, I see your hand.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, see that the Western Cape is investing very heavily in the on the farm there in Baikra, in the Oudtshoorn, and considering this heat wave that we are experiencing at the moment in the Western Cape, I think that we need to keep our eyes very focused on what is happening there in terms of the dam levels, not just there in that area, in Oudtshoorn area, but all around the Western Cape. So I would suggest that, I know that we've done oversight there now just a couple of days or weeks ago, but looking at this heat wave that we have just experienced now for the last couple of days, I remember when we went to visit the dam levels was at such a low point. I'm sure, by the end of this week, there's probably not even a drop of water left in the dam. And the Western Cape, where we are investing heavily in that particular farm there in Baikra. And same is the case also with many other farms. So yeah, I would suggest that as soon as we can, we need to do a oversight. I just came this morning. I came from the West Coast, doing some oversight there on the West Coast, and yeah, the dam levels are at the alarming, very very alarming low point. So we as the committee, I think we need to keep our eyes on the situation and monitor it day by day. Because if we are not going to put measures in place, then we're probably going to sit with another huge crisis, which we already have, there in the Middle East and many other crises that we're experiencing with the foot and mouth. Before this also becomes another huge crisis, I think let's put interventions in place so that we can mitigate, some of the challenges that we are going to face the upcoming winter months. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Brenkhuis. What you are saying is quite vital, that we have to really watch the water challenges in the whole province, and not only the whole province, but the whole country. And I know that Honorable Stoffel, keep on hammering this issue, the management of our resources, and especially water. So I think it's in the powers of this committee, to also make recommendations if the committee feels that there is a need, obviously, to increase the budget allocation to support, the issues of water, scarcity or challenges of water, But I know that, from environmental planning side, that's the area that they are actually, responsible for. But I think it doesn't really cause any harm for us as a committee, to keep a watchful eye and persistently keep this on our agenda to just make sure that, this war, when it lands, is adequately budgeted for. I think it's a very, very valid point. But thank you very much, Honorable Brenkhuis. Honorable Adams.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I'd also just like to chip in on the point that Honorable Brenkhuis is making, seeing that if you look at the dam levels of the Garden Route, which is roundabout playing around 58% currently, and also with the growing number of people that is migrating towards the Western Cape, we should really look into it to really see how we can assist the municipalities with new dams, or either seeing how we can the current dams, how we can just increase the levels. I know the Garden Route Dam was increased a couple of years ago, but the population has also grown considerably a lot. So, Chair, if we can, as committee, just look into that to make sure that we foresee the future in terms of the droughts and stuff. A couple of years ago, we've been warned that the Western Cape or the Karoo area and Garden Route area will become a dry area. So we must look into this to make sure that we don't sit and sleep and we have a day zero situation again in the near future. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Just to also make a point, honorable members, that you are also welcome to put written questions directly to ministers that are responsible for those particular functions. There's a transversal, obligation, especially on water infrastructure, obviously, playing a role there, and the local government playing a role, and the environmental and planning also playing a role, and agriculture obviously consume lots of water for agricultural purposes. But I think, this oversight mechanism of a committee is important, but I also want to recommend that, your member statements, your motions, and your questions in Parliament will also help quite a lot in terms of addressing these issues. Yeah, but really, thank you very much, honorable members. I think with that, I assume that Mrs. Niger, you got all the questions that were, the resolutions that were put through by honorable members. Honorable members, really thank you very much for the time that you have spent with the department and really listening and asking tough questions. You have a lovely weekend. And thank you, Nomfundo, as well, for your support at the background, and the rest of the colleagues at the WCPP for the support that they are giving to this committee. I just want to wish you a restful weekend. See you on Monday again. Goodbye.
Bye, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
colleagues.
Members.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much, Nomfundo. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Shireen. Yeah, it
Have
was very long.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks, Norms. I'm gonna exit, eh?
Okay, yeah, you can. Sure.